In this basic system we have a set of production reports. The packing and dispatch reports can be used in a number of different ways. They can be used for the whole purpose of giving you a tally, simple tally to work from, or manifests to go out with the run, or particular packing reports, or loading bay packing reports, or picking reports. And these reports will have a number of different formats that are available, and those formats are set up in the company details to manage your system. There are more detailed packing reports that you can come in, and these are the ad hoc ones. You can do reports here like for particular product production. Oh, this is the one I just picked, production groups. We'll keep flicking down the wrong one. There's dispatch packing reports where we can pick a particular group for a particular run for a particular date, and we can have loading bay summaries and so on. And these reports all have formats which are useful and suitable for different applications, and it's worth picking and looking through the different formats to see how they all work. The run loading system is another system which is added in, which means we can actually pick a particular day and a particular shift and see our runs, and we can actually start producing things like pack sheets for that run, which are what we're ideally wanting to pack, and we can start to put our adjustments through, and each time we reprint the report we can actually end up loading our adjustments, and it'll take us right through the load sheet and through to the reconciliation sheet when the run comes back to actually see, after all the adjustment dockets have been put through, that what we delivered was what we finally packed. The production management can be done in a number of ways. We have the option here to actually do a production plan where we can actually see a week at a time, and we can see a particular product. We can see our opening stock on each day of that particular product. This will be a MUI. We can see the requirement that's leaving the stock on that particular day, and we can see what our closing stock's going to be. So we can come in and we can start to plan how many we need to make. So we could actually make 200 on that day, and we can see that's going to last us through the next day, but we're going to be short stock, so we may well end up, say, making 400 that day and giving us enough stock to get us through to the end of the week. And so that will then become it's a planned product, so that will become part of our production for that particular day. So we can actually start to plan, we can drill into the particular day and see our products, and we actually then schedule that production across the 3 shifts that we might have in our bakery for that day to work things out. We can look at the man-minute requirement based on our recipes to see what the man-minutes are going to be in each department for that day, and then we can then use that to determine how we're going to schedule our shifts, or whether we've overmade or undermade or underplanned for the particular day. A number of options where we can actually go and set the plan to make minimum stock, or we can set the plan, based on the forecast to make minimum stock. We'll set it to last week's plan, and we can print and issue our raw materials based on what we're going to produce today, and produce a series of reports as well for that particular production. So it becomes a whole management schema within the system. For people that are into pie products and pastries and cakes, the production plan becomes a very powerful way of managing what's happening. The plan is a rolling plan, and you can actually see it as far in advance as you require and manage it. And we can do stock issues, and we can also go and actually look and see then the impact on our raw materials of what we're actually making. So we can see our opening stock on a given day, raw materials, what's been received, what's been used, what our closing stock is, what's due to arrive that day, and what's required to be used that day. And then we can actually start to see what we need to be reordering and reviewing and working through. So we actually can start to see a picture of our plant throughout the week. We have a ability to confirm what we've made, so we can actually say this is what needs to be made on a particular day in a particular department, and then we can come in and say, well, this is what we did make, and so now we actually have a tracking of what we said we're going to make, what we actually did make. We can have our production hours come in, and we have our theoretical hours that have been used, and so we can actually manage and see what's happening and keep all our stock tracked as it goes through. We can do the same with our raw materials. We can produce a set of production reports, and again these reports all have a whole series of different formats. If I print this particular report here, eventually flashing through, so we can actually set these report formats up to suit your particular function. So this one here we've set up so they've got a check-off sheet for each product. So in this case they needed 2 batches, so the user has to tick off the batch, put the batch numbers in for each batch that he picked, so he's actually got a track of what was actually happening. And we can change these formats around into all sorts of interesting scenarios, so that if we go to our company details and set our options for our production report, if we pick, let's see, what one do I want to pick? We'll pick number 5 and see the format will change and be somewhat different. So now we've actually got a sheet that looks a bit more like this, where we've actually got what our dough is being used in, our expected hours, and we can feed through our quantities and fill out our sheet to sort of show what's happening. So that's our production sheet, a plant sheet giving totals, and a cutting sheet of how those things are going to be sliced up for the individual things. So the report formats that come out of here can be quite diverse and quite comprehensive depending on what's required. And there is something like 20 different formats in there already to deal with production. There are a number of production reports where we can go and actually look at things like our ingredient usage against estimated, and this is for a particular date range that was selected. The system's actually checking what was drawn from the inventory. So here we have let's see if we can find one with some actual usage. We may have not got any usage in here yet. We've got our opening stock, what we purchased, what was transferred in or out, and our closing stock, and what we actually drew out for production, how many weeks we've got on hand, and what our formula says we should have drawn based on what we made, and then we have our over and under value from the formula to what was used and what the value of that is, so that we can actually start to see whether we have a leakage of a product, whether our recipes are reasonable, whether our estimates of losses are reasonable, and that sort of thing. We can actually take this report one step further, and we have a ingredient history where we can actually say, well, let's go and focus on the over under, and we can actually go and look at 10 weeks worth of over and under for a particular product. We just take one so we don't have to spend all our time waiting. This is our over-under column for each week going along for that product, so we can actually go and check that and see what's happening and why that product's being used or not being used, and we can pick our weeks on hand or our weeks usage and actually look at the consistency or inconsistency of what's there. So we have a number of ways of reporting on that. And then we have a number of dispatch reports and shortfall reports and requirement reports that we can use to go and look at whether we made enough, didn't make enough, and report by department or bake type or whatever on what's actually happening within the production system. So this whole production thing can be extended with the multi-plant module, which then brings us into workstation management, production plant management, and links the whole scenario right through to the individual plant item on your floor, so you can actually start to schedule the whole work through your bakery. We were just looking at the simple module here.